Abe, welcome. How are you?
Real happy to be part of this wonderful blog. I love
appreciate
Fred Beato.
Oh, thank you so
Beato.
much. So do I.
Yeah.
So do I. I wanted to ask you what I thought was your most important role, and that is as a father. I want to start there. I know you're a very proud father, and you have two very, very successful sons in the same business you are.
Yes.
You had talked about early in your life where you had to stop playing for a few years. Your wife is a pediatrician.
Correct.
And you guys talked about how you wanted to raise your kids.
Correct.
Can you talk about your fatherhood, your experience as being a father with two sons in the same business?
Well, it is truly the most important aspect of all of our lives is to come to terms with the fact that we are here to create a legacy. So it's independent of whether you have children or not. We are all here as human beings in this planet to create a legacy. And I've been very privileged to have been given the opportunity to choose to treat my children as the most important thing in my life. And so from the time they were born, I had the privilege, the immense privilege to be present in both of their births, and then to hold them and present them to my wife, And then when the time came that my wife, with our oldest boy, she was going to medical school, and the time came for her to do her internship. And that was going to require her to work over 118 hours a week. So if I had continued with my regular job, at the time I was traveling with Henry Mancini and Michel Legrand and Johnny Mathis, that meant that Abe Jr. would have been left alone and separated from both of us. So I chose for 2 years during her internship to spend full time with Abe Jr. And that changed both of our lives forever, because very few fathers get to spend that kind of quality time with a 2-year-old son,
And you had such a substantial career. Was that a difficult decision for you to say, I'm going to stay home, when you were so busy at the time already?
The only part that really made it hard is that during that time that I knew that for 2 years I could not accept anything, some phone calls came that I wish I could have said yes. But in retrospect, my career has been so blessed that all the people that I said no to, eventually I ended up working with and becoming friends with,
So now you look back today, and you look back on both your sons, and they're very successful in the industry. How do you feel as a father looking back now, seeing your legacy build up right in front of you?
It's a real sense, a genuine sense of privilege. I'm going to say something somewhat negative. In some of the musicians in Los Angeles at the height of my studio career took me aside and told me that I was making it very difficult for the music industry to progress the way it was supposed to progress, because I kept telling everybody that the most important thing in my life was my family. And they says, if you keep doing that, Abraham, is really, you're closing a lot of doors. Then the years go by, and now they see the kinds of conversations I have with my children. They see how we relate to each other. And by comparison, they own a lot of land. They have like the best cars. They are financially very, very powerful. But they take me aside and they said, man, we would gladly trade if we had someone that treated us the way your children treat you.
So you did the right thing, and in the end, it paid off for you.
Yes, it does, because they do admire me and they admire my children.
I could see that. Now, you actually didn't start as a bass player, correct?
That's correct.
And I think you're going to tell me something about one of your fingers.
Yes. When I was 4 years old, because of being so mischievous, I lost the tip of my index finger on the left hand. So my father started to teach me to play with only the remainder 3 fingers, And so after 2 years, I gave up because it was too hard to play only with 3 fingers. And then I restarted to play guitar by ear with records. My brother was like the most successful rock and roll singer in Mexico. And all the American publishing companies would send him songs for him to consider translating to Spanish and recording them. And the ones that he would reject, he would give to me. So then I started to play by ear with every imaginable style of music from the United States, all the way from Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross to Buck Owens and the Buckaroos and everything in between, you know. So I developed a genuine relationship and deep love for American music in the midst of Mexico City.
How do you think, looking back, had you not hurt your finger, what kind of guitar player would you have been?
Wow. To be honest with you, I never thought about that. I remember my father going, how are we going to resolve this, you know? So then he started to teach me with this. Then when I was a little bit older and I went to music school in Mexico, I wanted to learn to play cello. And the first 3 months was all theory. They taught us how to draw a cello. We had to go to the library and take books on the history of the cello. And then finally, after 3 months, the teacher says, okay, go and rent one, and we're going to start the practical aspects. And I was very excited. And when the teacher saw my finger, he was so shocked. But he was pretending that everything was fine. And I was laughing so hard because he would go, no, you're normal. You're normal, fucking. I'm sorry, but you cannot play cello. So I think that if my hands had been perfectly normal, I would have been able to learn a lot of classical music because my father was self-taught classical guitarist. And there were lots and lots of pieces by Tárrega and by Fernando Sor and transcriptions of Segovia's things that I would have been able to learn if I had, if my fingers had enabled me to do that, you know.
Well, thank God for all the sessions you've done and for all the work you've done that you became a bass player. You've done so much session work. Is there anything in your career you feel I haven't gotten to yet that I want to go to? Doing so many sessions and soundtracks.
Yeah, the only regret I have, and I know that lately he's been very ill, is I wish I had had a chance to work with McCoy Tyner. You know, I've always had deep admiration for him, and that's, other than him, I think I've played with everybody I want to play. And another beautiful thing is happening that even though the years go by and the music styles change, I keep meeting new people through my children, and I keep being invited to do different things, different styles, different ways of thinking and looking at music. It is really eternal. The music is infinite, you know.
And you have an aspect of you that you like to pass on to others what you've learned.
Mm-hmm.
The music business, from when you started and came to this country, has changed dramatically, hasn't it?
It has.
What are some of the biggest changes you've noticed through today that is just different?
Well, I'm going to say something that is purely philosophical. And I'm going to get emotional. There was a great trumpet player that was kind of who helped me find an apartment to live in Los Angeles and made sure that I did not go in the wrong direction as I was trying to figure out my way in LA. His name was Graham Young. And he said to me, Abraham, you know, this is 1976. He says, there is over 10,000 musicians that live in greater Los Angeles, out of which only about 200 work all the time. Which means that nobody's indispensable. So you have to carry yourself with an understanding that you are here because of your love for music. And remember, any style of music, of any genre from the world, you will find great people in Los Angeles that are masters of any of those styles. And the most important thing that I have to tell you is that in the 30s, the studio musicians of Los Angeles were Stravinsky, Arthur Rubinstein, Jascha Heifetz. And he says they were the people that would do the sessions, and they were hanging with each other, not realizing the legacy that they were going to represent. So the people that you run into, treat them with utmost respect, because maybe 60 years from now, we're going to be talking about your generation in the same way we talk about Rubinstein and Stravinsky.
Oh,
And so in my heart, I feel that as much as it's changed, all the people that gravitate to come here are people of that caliber, people that genuinely love music, that genuinely are contributing something. And even though people might not notice them at the time, eventually, I believe what Graham said, that we're going to be talking about each other as the people that further the cause of music for the whole world.
I can't help but notice your legacy and what you leave on this earth seems very important to you, doesn't it?
It is, because that's what's going to allow other people to not give up.
Whether it be your children or just some other musician. What do you want to tell the young musicians who are looking at you and you're established and you've had such a great career and they say, I want to be like him? What would you say to them?
Just, it's important to remember why we fell in love with music. And then when you start functioning as a professional musician, don't lose sight of the fact that you're doing what you love. The moment it becomes a routine or a chore, or you do it because you have a sense of obligation, and not because you care, you are hurting yourself every time you exercise the gift of music. There is a great producer who, when he was 4 years old, he absolutely hated practicing. And he remembers his father bought himself a kindergarten chair. And he would sit next to his son at age 4 every day for 2 hours for him to practice his piano scales and all that stuff in this little chair, And eventually, he says something clicked. And he realizes that as much as he hated practicing, as much as he hated the fact that his father would not give him a choice, now he discovers that he has a gift inside that can bring so much joy to the whole world and to himself, that now he no longer resents having to have done such a hard work.
I couldn't help but notice when we were setting up to talk with you and you're playing your bass and I see the way you're playing, you strike me as someone who has still so much passion. You reminded me of someone you would see as a young man in a music store playing for the first time and saying, this sounds great. You still enjoy it so much, don't you?
Yeah. Culturally speaking, in the English language, to play an instrument uses the word play, which implies childlike behavior. In Spanish, the word for playing an instrument is to touch the instrument. So to be able to touch the instrument is a privilege, because in Spanish, I think also in the United States, the one thing that children always hear from adults is don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. And here you are allowed to touch the whole time. What do? Yo toco un instrumento, toco música, So we are doing, there's a joke, but now in the context of this interview, this joke now takes a very beautiful meaning. It says, what's the difference between government bonds and musicians?
It is?
That the government bonds will mature eventually. We become children the moment we start playing music,
And no matter how many sessions you've done and how many years you've played, you still have it.
Yeah. We have a mutual friend, Joe Porcaro. Every time I see him just warm up and start playing the instrument with brushes or with sticks, he puts an automatic grin on my face. And he looks at me and he says, what's wrong with you? And pretty soon the two of us are smiling and we're laughing as we're playing. And that's something that doesn't happen when I go to the bank or when I go grocery shopping, When you're with people that you respect and people that you love and you start feeling the music, it moves me to the core of my being,
For all your experiences, Abe, from everything you played, do you have a favorite style or genre that maybe is a little bit more enjoyable to you? Is there anything you prefer doing more?
Well, for a long time, rhythm and blues was my favorite style of music. bar none. Then Graham Young says to me, the secret of surviving in Los Angeles is being versatile. And he says those 200 people out of 10,000 that work all the time are people that can play genuinely whatever is they are asked to play. And when I saw that, I was overwhelmed. 2 minutes of opera of the highest quality, followed by 2 minutes of Afro-Cuban music, followed by 2 minutes of heavy metal, followed by 2 minutes of... And the same musicians, just as the conductor would give the downbeat, the quality of the sound, everything would change. The phrasing, the attitude, and not everybody can do that. And so there's this Australian British recording engineer who got really scared when the earthquake happened in Los Angeles in '95, moved to Australia, and without disrespecting anybody, he says to me, I went to Australia because I was scared of the earthquake scene in Los Angeles. And suddenly I realized how rich the musical environment is in LA, and how the versatility of what you can get out of LA musicians, you cannot get out of musicians anywhere else in the world. In England, he says, to find people that can every 2 minutes change styles like that, it's just unheard of. And so he says that it took him almost a year to get these musicians in Australia and to eventually get them to sound like a nice rhythm section for whatever project that they were working on. He was not even trying to put a band together. He was just trying to do generic songs. And he says they are not used to playing together.
From what you've seen in your experience, in your career, in your life, what would you like to see change in the music business?
The most important thing that I want to see change has become kind of like a mantra to me. People to recognize that music is not a competitive sport, but that it is a collaborative art. And I hope to instill that in everybody I meet.
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
That we, as musicians, we're not competing against each other. People say, you need to step on people before they step on you. You take advantage of the opportunity and don't worry who gets hurt as you grab opportunity. And I want to see that change. I want people to recognize that, let me hear you play these 2 bars. And you start saying, man, wow, I never thought of playing it that way. So then you start joining them and you are realizing that you're learning something new. And then that person will say to you, wow, but you are approaching it different from the way that I thought this was supposed to be. And then something happens in that exchange that both people realize that they are making music better. Because we are collaborating, we are sharing. As opposed to, no, I don't want you to see what I'm doing because this is my secret voicing or this is my secret style. Then I become alone, I become introverted. I don't help anybody else to figure out what I'm doing. That can say, no, Abraham, don't put your finger there, put it here. And then you can combine both at the same time. Oh, wow, that's true, that's great. It's beautiful. And, since I've been in LA, I've run into a lot of musicians that are incredibly generous with me. That they says, no, don't do it that way, do it this way. And then I said, wow, great. And then they says, what are you doing? I'm doing this. Wow. It sounds great. That's not supposed to work, And so we are sharing. There is no selfishness. And that's part of what I pray becomes my legacy. To convince and inspire people to share. To not choose to be... it's very dangerous for musicians to always be alone with their own thoughts and their own ideas, because then it becomes a conversation between themselves and nobody else. And when they start just talking to themselves and answering the questions, loneliness starts becoming a bad thing.
Why do I have this feeling that you and I can have this same interview 50 years from now? Why do I have that feeling about you?
Because we're talking about stuff that is not based on fashion.
No, but I feel as if there's so much passion in you, you're not going to stop. Not patronizing you, but no, there's so much passion, you want to continue so much that your age is almost confusing to me.
Yeah, My manager says that in the same way that Count Basie and Duke Ellington never stop, he thinks that I'm just gonna keep. As he says, as long as there's music to be made, I don't think we aren't gonna ever stop. You know.
I actually think as long as there's blood in your veins, it won't stop.
Well, from your lips, you know.
It's been a great life. It's been a proud father.
Yeah.
A great father, responsible father, a brilliant career, and we still have a ways to go.
Yeah.
And you look back and you say, I'm blessed.
You know, the best is yet to come. For those of you that are watching the blog, be on the lookout for a family project with Abe Jr., Mateo, and myself, the Laboriel man.
It just doesn't get any better with you, does it? It just keeps growing and growing.
There is dreams yet to come true. You know.
Abe, it is so nice to talk to you. This gentleman, I'm sure everyone has seen him. You have got to see this man. And even better, you have to meet him and talk to him.
Please.
You are such a person. Abe, thank you so much for a few minutes today.
My pleasure.
It was really a pleasure. The
This is great.
Abe.